Good morning. I'm going to switch it up from investing into real estate into investing into humans. Although I do think that the fund managers wearing makeup.com is possibly the next big craze. I'm going to rush out and get that URL. I'm going to start off by talking about one human in particular, and that's my mum. Now, as a psychologist working in the finance industry, and I've been working in the finance industry for about 15 years now, I'm about as far removed from being a financial expert as it's possible to be, but still work in the industry. That doesn't stop my mum deciding that I'm the go-to person. She needs some free financial advice. Now, at the end of last year, she came into a small windfall, so she gets on the phone to me. She asked me what my advice is and what she should do with it. Now, just to be aware, I always tell her she should see a financial advisor. But it's my mum, so she doesn't always listen to me. So I did talk to her about what she needed the money for, how long she could keep it without needing it, and would she want it back anytime soon. And it turns out she could invest the money for a decent period of time, but she would also like the comfort of being able to get it back and not lock it into anything. So I said to her, well, Mum, Stocks and Shares ISA is the way to go. You don't have an ISA. It's quite easy. I can help you set it up. Let's do that. Now, a couple of weeks later, I phoned her up to see how she was getting on. And she said, oh, marvellously, thank you very much. Thank you for all your help and your advice. After speaking to you, I went out and I got premium bonds. And I was like, Mum, what have you done? Why? I thought we talked this through. And she said, yes, I know, but each month Ernie could pull out my numbers and I might win a prize. Now, she had this for about a year now. She's won nothing to date. Now, as a behavioural psychologist, I look at how people make decisions and about how sometimes those decisions can seem irrational and illogical, especially when you're facing advice. And I take that research from psychology and behavioural science and I try and apply it to financial products, financial processes, and more often into the interface design of any financial product where investors may be looking at their finances, but also where you and your teams may be engaging as well. Now, a lot of my work outside of James Hay is direct to consumer. I think it's a mistake to think that just because a project is B2B2C, that it shouldn't think of how the users actually use the interface and how the users use the products. And the users could be you, and the users could be your teams trying to get through the process. One of the reasons I'm here today is that over the past 8 months or so, I've been working with James Hay, especially with the digital team, looking at the James Hay online portal and working to get better processes into the system with the objective of making it easier for you to service your clients through there. Now, I'm delighted to be able to preview some of the insights that we've put into the portal this morning. But firstly, I just thought I'd take a step back. I just thought I'd just take a look at walking in the investor's shoes and thinking a bit more broadly about how investors and humans in general, that's us, make decisions about finances, and how understanding this just a little bit more can help us make better services and help you make better conversations with your clients. Now, we all know clients come in different shapes and sizes. Some are brimming over with investment confidence. Some, as Alistair pointed out, just don't want to talk about their finances and would rather talk about everything else. The one thing research from behavioural science has shown is that no matter what a person's confidence, no matter what their financial education, everyone is influenced in remarkably similar ways, often by seemingly subtle contextual factors. And that understanding these factors can start to help us understand when we see figures like this, help us to overcome them. And probably even more surprising, kind of crazy. What actually happened here was a miscalculation happened, so they sent a letter out. On the envelope was the logo of the pension provider in the corner. When people see the logo of a pension provider come through the letterbox, it gets popped on the side. Deal with that later. It gets popped on the desk. I'll deal with that at the weekend. Or possibly even gets popped in the bin. So actually, it resulted in less than 50% of people getting their £3,000. And actually, probably more relevant to us at the moment is the figures that we're seeing for drawdown products going up. And obviously, the flip side of that is the annuity product market is going down. When you combine that with the fact that people are now taking drawdown products and taking quite a risk that was really only available to the sort of higher end of the market at one point. And they're doing that without independent financial advice. Then actually we can get a bit scared by that. And I believe that if we continue to take the stance that humans as a whole, investors, clients, us, always make decisions in a logical and rational manner, then we will continue to see facts like these. And if we continue to put out education projects and information initiatives to try and educate our clients, it won't work. And the crisis that everyone's sort of talking about may actually come to fruition. Now, the topic of human decision-making is quite rich, but in sort of half an hour, I thought I'll pick out just a few elements of how people make choices, how clients could make choices by how you frame the decisions that you give them, and actually how you may make choices as well. Because we should stop seeing the relationship with our clients as a mirror image of ourselves. We should actually see it more like this. And when we start to see them as people that may not be as interested in the topic as we are, you start communicating differently. And the importance that Alistair was putting at the beginning, but how we communicate to the clients to make them understand through simple language, is an important point to make. So here's an example. In this experiment, a group of people said they won a competition. And the prize of the competition was they got a free Amazon gift voucher. But they had a choice. Of course they had a choice. It's an experiment. The choice was, do they want a £10 Amazon gift voucher for free, or do they want to pay £7 and get a £20 Amazon gift voucher? Now what should they do? Yeah, they should. Of course, I mean, a room full of financial advisors, they should get the second one. It's a better economic deal. What did they do? The first one. Everyone tends to go for the free. It's the power of free. When something's free, it moves our mind away from a rational decision into it's free. That's quite good, isn't it? And just to prove it, they did a second condition, where they just added £1 to each condition, and the effect completely disappeared. Now, once you do this, people start to think about it rationally. They work out what's the better deal, and they go for the better deal. But when that free's there, then it sways them completely. Now, Halloween's coming up. Psychologists love Halloween because you get participants knocking on your door, and it's a great opportunity to do some experiments. And in America, they did this, and they did this to show the power of free. So when a group of children came to this psychologist's door, he gave them 3 Hershey's Kisses. Now, I've never seen a Hershey's Kiss. I've not been to the States, but I assume they're like little chocolates. It's 3 Hershey's Kisses. He said, I'll give you a choice. If you give me one of those Hershey's Kisses back, I'll give you a fun-sized chocolate bar in return. If you give me 2 of your Hershey's Kisses back, then I'll give you a full-sized chocolate bar. Now, children are very good chocolate economists, and they went, well, if I just give 2 of these small bits of chocolate back, I get a bigger bit of chocolate. Great. And that's what they all did. All very rational. What a great decision for them. They walked away happier and slightly fatter, I presume. Now, another condition, they changed the options slightly. This one, again, 3 Hershey's Kisses. He said, okay, give me one of your Hershey's Kisses back, and I'll give you the full-size chocolate bar. Or you can have just the fun-size one for free. Now, this changed them completely. Suddenly, their rational brain exploded. And they went, it's free. I can get a free small chocolate bar, and I don't have to give away any of my small chocolates. And the majority, the overwhelming majority, now go for the free chocolate bar. And when you start to see the power of free, you start to understand why software companies start to give you free trials, Knowing that, another psychological phenomenon called status quo bias will mean that after the free trial, you will probably continue on paying, probably at the highest rate that they put you on in the first place. And in finance, you start to see companies like Moneybox and many more starting to apply the power of free into their business models as well. I'll come back to Moneybox a little bit later. Also, when investors start to delve into their assets and to their funds, and start to pick out quite complex figures. Now, I've just made this very simple by putting 2. And I've stripped out all the other performances to make it a really simple choice. Actually, what happens, that 0% at the top sways people, because trying to work out which is the best fund out of all of that is quite a big problem. So actually, when you start to see things like that, think about the power of free. And if you're ever putting anything in there free, that could actually change the opinion of what they're going to do. But it isn't just free. There are many different ways that you present choices in suitability reports, into reviews, that could affect the decision of a client. Another experiment gave people the choice of choosing a phone contract and said, which phone contract would you like out of these 3? Now, the observant among you will probably look at the advanced and premium and go, I think there's been some sort of mistake. They're the same, aren't they? But one's just £5 more expensive, so what's it doing there? Of course I'm not going to choose that. You probably won't be surprised to learn that when this was done as an experiment, most people choose the advanced option. Nobody chooses this option over here, willingly paying £5 more than they have to. They all choose the advanced option. But the whole point of this option over here is not to be chosen. It's to move you away from thinking of a rational choice of, do I need basic or do I need advanced? Suddenly your choice becomes, well, do I need advanced or premium? Well, of course I don't need premium. That's a stupid option. So I'm going to take advanced. It moves people's decision away. Now, this was just an experiment. This was real. This was the subscription model from The Economist magazine. And you could have a web subscription for The Economist for £59. You can have a print subscription for £125, or you can have both for £125. Now, a psychologist in America, Dan Ariely, got a bit puzzled by this and phoned The Economist up and said, well, what's that middle option for? To be honest, they said, we don't know. We didn't build the model, I'm just on the sales phone. He got the sales figures from The Economist. And what he found was 16% of people chose the web subscription, nobody chose the middle option, 84% of people chose the print and web subscription. Kind of irrelevant then. So Dan Ariely went away and said, well, I'm going to do an experiment and we're going to take that middle option out. It's irrelevant, isn't it? What happened then? He asked people what they were going to subscribe to. Suddenly, 68% of people now moved towards the cheaper option, and there are less people into the more expensive option. In psychology, we call that anchoring, using a dummy choice to anchor people to what you want them to do. Influences their choice. Now, The Economist didn't do it on purpose, although you kind of suspect that they might have done, the clever people behind there. But when we start to sort of present choices, we have to think about the choices around all of them will make an influence on people's decisions. It's not just dummy choices, but ordering also has an effect. Now, the order in which you present things will affect the choice that people make. Now, they did an experiment on wine lists in restaurants. Psychologists have a great time. If you, in a wine list, order the wine from the most expensive at the top and to the least expensive, the average wine sale increases. Because the first thing you see on that menu is quite an expensive wine. That's the first thing that's in your memory. That anchors you, and actually you'll choose a more expensive wine because of it. If you order it the other way round with the cheapest plonk at the top, actually you're anchored to that top point, and actually at the bottom point really, and then you'll go down and you won't spend so much money. Now, this type of technique is used everywhere. Amazon use it. If you spend £3,000 on a new digital camera, they will suggest to you a bag for that camera for about £200. And you'll go, well, I've just spent £3,000 on a camera. I want to protect my product. Of course I want to spend £200. That's quite a bargain, isn't it? Actually, that effect disappears quite quickly within a couple of hours of you making that purchase, you will then look at that bag for £200 and go, wow, that's quite expensive for a camera bag, isn't it? I can pop down to Jessop's and get one for £25. So people know that choice ordering and the array of choices that you give is very important. Actually, it's like this visual illusion. The surrounding items affect your perception of what that size of the middle dot is. Now, you don't need me to tell you probably, but those two dots are exactly the same size, I promise you. But your visual cortex can't take that in. It sees one as bigger than the other because of the surrounding dots. That's what's happened when you present choices to people. Surrounding information will affect them in the same type of way. Now, Alistair has already mentioned jams. It's one of the biggest findings in psychology when you deal with choice, is that the quantity of choice actually causes paralysis in people. Now, jams aren't just the preserve of the rich. I'd like to get a pun in. They did a survey of Vanguard retirement funds in America. And the survey was really large. It was over 1 million people in different companies and about 2,000 different companies across America. And when they surveyed the figures of these Vanguard retirement funds, they found that for every 10 mutual funds that the employer offered, the rate of participation went down by about 2%. I think that's quite important when we start to think about presenting choice to people, especially when we start to think about presenting the quantity of choice. Now, I have a problem as a psychologist that I don't have children of my own with which to experiment on. However, I do have friends with children who lend them to me. We did an experiment with a set of friends' children called the pocket money experiments. These were children aged between about 11 and 15, and they got about £5 a week pocket money. And we said to them, would you swap us out for that? £5 a week. Or would you like nothing this week? Next week you'll get £15. And we didn't tell them, we didn't work it out for them, we had to let them work out what that meant to them. Or would you like to sacrifice half of your pocket money over the next 4 weeks, over the next month? But you will get a £25 bonus at the end of the month if you do that. Now, some of them didn't do it at all and told me just to go away. That's fine. But which one do you think they chose? It was the first one. We asked them why. The general reason was, this is a bit complicated, isn't it? Didn't quite be able to work it out. It's only £2.50 over 4 weeks. But that was just a bit of a cognitive effort too much. But also, they could see the future far easier in that first one. Next week didn't seem that far away. Sacrificing everything this week to get that bonus next week was quite enticing for them. And we gave them a third option as well. So again, sacrificing their pocket money, half over the 4 weeks. We said, for the money that you sacrificed, we could put that in a pot for you. Now, these pots are different. These pots, you could earn actually much more money than you started with. Oh, but you never know, though. It might not. It might do fare worse. Or you can put it in something which actually you're going to get pretty much back what you put in. Now, children of 11 and 15 aren't economists. They're not financial advisors. They don't quite know what we're talking about here, but we can all see exactly what this type of model is. Not one child went for this choice. He hated it. They said, this is too complicated. I have to work things out. I have to take a risk. I do not want to participate. Just give me my £5 a week, please. The side effect of this, obviously, is that my friends' children don't speak to me. And that would be kind of funny. But if you remember back to the £3,000 that people walked away from because the envelope came through the door with the logo on the top corner, that effect. Finance becomes too complicated. We'd rather walk away from it and avoid it and actually deal with it at that time. Back to Moneybox a minute. Do any of you know the Moneybox app? It's a London-based startup. It's available now, Android and iOS. I have nothing to do with it, so I'm not trying to push it. It tries to get people to get invested in an ISA. It uses the Save the Change initiative. You join it up to your bank account, or you join it up to your credit cards. And every time you spend something, it rounds it up to the next pound, takes that money, puts it into a stocks and shares ISA for you. When you get the choice of what portfolio you want, you get 3 options, and that's it. You get your cautious, your balanced, and your adventurous. And you can go in and see what actual funds they invest in. Nobody does. They're happy with that at this level. Now, I've actually spoken to many people in the financial world about Moneybox, to see what their opinion is of it. And I get quite a few people scoffing at it, especially because their setup fees are quite high. They charge £1 a month just to use the app. And their rates are quite high, and their funds are quite high. But it's kind of missing the point. What they're doing is making it really simple for people to get started with an investment ISA. And people are often very willing to pay for that privilege. Now, I've been using Moneybox for about 2 weeks now, and this is my actual account. I took a screen grab for you. You can see in 2 weeks I've made £90.93, and I've got £5.82 going in. So I've made almost £100 in 2 weeks. Now, for me, that's kind of magic, because I've done nothing, and I've just got £100 back to me. That feedback loop is quite important to get the motivation going for people to continue to save and invest. When we think about motivation loops in these sort of ISAs and SIPs and everything that we provide, we get to think, is that the same sort of motivational factor that they're providing or not? So it brings up an incredibly important point we face when we're having conversations with clients, and that's how we present risk. Now, if I was going to flip a coin, and you were going to take a bet with me, and if I flipped a coin and you lost, you would have to give me £100. How much would you have to win to take the bet with me? How much would you have to win on the other side of the coin for you to say, yes, I'm willing to take that bet and risk £100? Would anyone bet for £100 to win? £100 win, £100 lose? No. £200? £500? £1,000? Starting to get a few nods at £1,000. Then we're going up, okay. It turns out that actually when we get to risk, Daniel Kahneman, psychologist who won the Nobel Prize for this, actually found out that we're loss adverse, and we tend to feel losses about twice as much as gains. So in the coin toss, about £250 to £300, and people will start to think about taking the bet. This is how, generally, I've seen it quite a lot, the presentation of portfolios when we're talking about risk. Okay, you've got a target, here's some portfolios, here's the volatility. If the volatility isn't there, because volatility is a terrible word, even if it is spelled correctly, here's the risk level. This frames the whole argument in terms of how much risk are you going to take over the long term. But we don't need to frame it like that. We could frame it differently. We could frame it over risk over the short term. So how much are you willing to sacrifice each month of your paycheck to get to your target? And suddenly you're seeing money coming out each month. Suddenly you're seeing people going £450 a month to get to £100,000 or £300 a month. You're still framing it as risk. Still getting people to understand that the risk they're taking, you're still giving the figures below of what they could get over that time period. Actually, you start to err people more towards the riskier side of the spectrum. So that's all about investors. We're all investors. We're all humans. We all suffer from these influences, even psychologists. Worse so, generally. But we've been working with the digital team to look at how, actually, to help your teams use the online portal better, how we can bring in psychology in to help your teams deal with things a little bit better. And one of the areas we've looked at is the crystallization process, and this is the current benefit to payment form. This is it, this is it, this is it, this is it. It goes on and on for about 13 pages. Now, the first thing we did was say, well, okay, if we're going to move this online, we don't just want to digitize it. Digitizing a form online is easy to do, but it isn't going to be effective. So myself and the team went out. We visited a range of financial advisors. We talked to advisors, we talked to power planners, we talked to financial assistants, often the ones filling these forms out, and worked out how and why they fill them out, what processes they do with, what little things, what little workarounds they've got, sticking post-it notes to them, scribbling in the corner a note back to James Hay because something they needed to say back. We took all that feedback and we tried to build it into a new process, a process that will work to be more streamlined to help you and your clients. Now, I'm just going to go through 4 different ways that we've built into this. One of the things that's really important is a psychological need for certainty. We crave certainty, and we don't like uncertainty. It's arguable that the best money Transport for London ever spent, pound for pound, was on the dot matrix signs telling us when the trains are going to arrive. Now, it doesn't make them faster, it doesn't make them more regular or more frequent, but we prefer to stand 6 minutes waiting for a train knowing it's going to be 6 minutes than 4 minutes of pure hell wondering whether that train's going to arrive. And when we had feedback from the teams that we went out and spoke to, one of the biggest things that came back was that our clients want to know when they're going to get their money. So, the new system, straight away, as you go through, almost immediately will give you an expected timescale that you can feed back to your clients. And we know it's quite complicated underneath the bonnet, depending on the client's circumstances. Actually, giving an indication of when it's going to be will ease that uncertainty. The next point. Paper form is pretty dumb, and you have to fill it all in. With an online system, it's quite clever. So we wanted to make sure we use the power of these connected systems to stop manual data entry and actually pull things across where we can. So information like lifetime allowance, information like the SIP bank account balance, or any pension protection products that are on the client's account will automatically be put into the system, automatically be shown for you to adjust, to review, and to move on. Also, the form will tell you if any outstanding information is against the account straight away. As soon as you start the request, it will tell you if there's an out-of-date property valuation, evidence of age check, so on and so forth. So you can get round to starting that. It won't stop you doing the process, you can still carry on. It just lets you know what's going to happen. And also, the form will adjust itself. The paper form, you have to go from Section 3. If you fill Section 3 and go to Section 5A, if you don't do Section 5A, go to 7B, and so on and so forth. You don't have to do this. You won't see any of that on the new process. It will streamline and adjust itself from the choices you make to only ever see the decisions that you need to make in the form. Thirdly, it's really important that we frame this whole process as a simple one. And when we spoke to teams and we mentioned the benefit payment form, the faces did not say this was a simple process. And what happens is that the forms get put on the side, they get ignored for a little bit, they only get filled out when they absolutely have to. And we don't want that to happen. We want them to be an easy process to go through. Framing them as simple and trying to design them in a way using psychology to go, well, that was actually quite a simple, easy thing for me to do is quite important. So actually, when you start the online form, it doesn't start off with the form. It starts off with a simple one question by one question interface. And what that's doing is by choosing answers to questions like this, it's adjusting the form behind the scenes for you to get rid of anything you do not need to see. What the effect was when we did some user testing on putting these questions out in front as simple one-by-one questions, that people always remembered the process as being really simple. Because the start of something is what people remember. It's called the peak-end rule. The start and the peak is the two things that they'll remember backwards. So if the start's simple, they'll remember it back as, well, that was a really simple process. So the next time your team go and have to do this, they'll go, well, that seems quite simple. No problem, I'll go and volunteer and I'll do that one. Finally, autonomy, posh word of control. Probably the simplest change in the process that can be for us to complete online. You notice that the form, when we went out and spoke to people, rarely got done in order. We said, well, okay, if we moved it online, obviously the knee-jerk reaction will be us to do, well, step 1, complete that, next, step 2, next, and so forth. That isn't how people complete the form in reality, in real life. So we made sure the form can be filled in any order it needs to be. It can also be saved. Again, realize that people didn't all do it at the same time. People often filled a bit out when they had their lifetime allowance. They put it on the shelf, waited for the next bit of information to come in, put the next bit in, put the next bit in before submitting it to James Hay. So actually we do the save and return behaviour as well. So those are just 4 very simple changes that we are going to make, and they are being put into development now into the James Hay portal, and that's just for the benefit payment request and crystallisation. I hope that these and, lots of other changes that we are making to the portal will help streamline your processes and help support your relationships that you have with clients. I also hope that the broader approach that we're taking, thinking about psychology and thinking about behavioural science, really does support your pursuit to effectively and responsibly influence your clients' decisions now and into the future. And we'll keep you informed of updates as we go on. I hope that was quite enjoyable for you. Thank you very much for listening.